Page 10. C. On the 5th to 6th March, a small party under Fawzi Bey al-Kawukji entered Palestine. Kawukji's present whereabouts and intentions are unknown, and no report of his having established a permanent headquarters have been received by the British authorities. D. Numbers of Egyptians have entered Gaza district, in parties of up to 100 at a time. It is possible that other smaller contingents have entered unreported. Secret British reports give full data. The fact is, however, that the British are fully aware of every incursion of foreign invaders and their exact deployment. This is indicated in the reports of British military intelligence in Palestine and the Middle East. A few typical excerpts from these reports indicate as early as last January the full knowledge of British military intelligence, and therefore of the Palestine administration, the British Colonial Office, and the British Foreign Office. A report on Arab infiltration was offered on January 30, 1948, in the fortnightly intelligence newsletter number 60, issued by Headquarters Palestine. 19. The main item of interest is undoubtedly the arrival of Arab bands from outside Palestine. The figures have varied considerably, but it is thought that they can be put at between 1,000 and 1,500. They are almost certainly members of Fawzi Kawukji's Yarmouk division, to which reference has been made in previous newsletters. Contrary to numerous rumors, however, Fawzi himself has not entered Palestine. He has constantly stated that he has no intention whatever of returning to this country like a thief in the night as the head of a rabble, and that he will come when preparations are complete, and he can do so openly as a soldier. On February 13, 1948, the fortnightly intelligence newsletter number 61, issued by Headquarters British Troops in Palestine, reported, more and more Arab irregulars have crossed the Syrian and Lebanese borders and moved into villages in the Safed area and the Galilee Hills. British intelligence reports detailed invasion plan. On March 5, in a secret report entitled Intelligence Summary No. 68, by the 6th Airborne Division, a detailed record of the Arab invasion was presented. 12. The infiltration of Arab bands from the neighboring Arab states is continuing, and an Arab source thought reliable has estimated the strength of the Arab Liberation Army in Samaria as being approximately 5,000, organized into 4 detachments. A. The Yarmouk. This was the first to arrive and is now located in the Jenin subdistrict, with its headquarters at SIR 179,196. B. The Huttian, named after the Battle of the Horns of Huttin 1187, located in the Tulkarm subdistrict and reported to be commanded by an Iraqi named Nasht Bey. C. The Hussein, probably named after the Mufti, occupying the Tubas area, but believed to be incomplete. This detachment is said to be equipped with a British-type rifle and to be about 800 strong at present. D. The Circassian, composed of about 300 men. A further draft of 300 is expected shortly. This detachment is commanded by an ex-captain of the Syrian Regular Army and is reported to be moving into the hills to the west of Nablus. Whilst the main Arab forces are located in the Nablus-Jenin-Tulkarm area, it is known that a strong force is being built up in the Galilee Hills, and further reports have been received of the movement of small Arab bands across the Lebanese frontier into the villages of Upper Galilee. 13. According to a reliable source, approximately 1,000 men crossed the Transjordan and Lebanese frontiers into Palestine on February 25 in 100 trucks. These Arab irregulars are reported to be dressed in American-type battle dress with orange hadas. One detachment of some 500 men went to the Nablus area via Tubas and was received by members of the National Committee. A parade was held in their honor, attended by Arab scouts and youth organizations. More than 10,000 local Arabs are said to have been present, and the mayor of Nablus and the president of the Page 11. National Committee, both made short addresses to the assembly. Mohammed Safar, Arab commander in the Nablus area, then lectured this detachment of newly arrived irregulars in the Palestine Hotel, Nablus. Following this address, which lasted for 2 hours, the group is reported to have left for the Baysan area, where the report states they will be used in attacks on Jewish colonies, which are expected to take place in the near future. 14. The second detachment, also of approximately 500, are reported to have crossed the Lebanese frontier in the area of Bint Jal 190,280, where they were met by high-ranking officers in the National Liberation Army. This detachment later dispersed into villages in the Upper Galilee area. The report indicates that these two contingents are the most well-equipped to cross the frontier to date. They are armed with rifles, Brents, and other automatic weapons, and heavier type gun of unspecified caliber for use in the hills. Each man is said to be carrying arms sufficient for 2 persons, as the band is hoping to be backed up by local guerrillas who will be recruited throughout the area. The leader of the force is an Iraqi officer who informed local leaders in the Acre subdistrict that the detachment would remain in the villages in Galilee as a force available for defense until orders are received from the Arab Liberation Army headquarters in Damascus to start the offensive. British reveal Kawukji's entry into Palestine. On March 12, Fortnightly Intelligence Newsletter number 63, issued by Headquarters. British troops in Palestine, supplemented his report with the following. 13. The arrival in Samaria of Fawzi Kawukji is definitely confirmed, but he is believed to be paying a short visit only this time. He has indicated his desire not to embarrass the authorities in any way, but when in Transjordan recently, it was reported that he talked about renewed activity against Jewish settlements, possibly with the intention of influencing the UN Security Council. It has not yet been confirmed which route he used to enter Palestine, although strong rumor has it that he came across Allenby Bridge at night. German officers and Yugoslav Muslims join Liberation Army. On January 19, CT. Evans, the district commissioner for the Galilee district, wrote to the Chief Secretary of Palestine, Sir Henry Gurney, that the training of the Arab Liberation Army is by European volunteers and that, in fact, one of the incursions was led by a German officer. In this connection, Mr. Evans wrote, "There is no doubt that well-equipped volunteers are coming across the Lebanese frontier and bivouacking in Palestine, in such inaccessible places as Wadi Kun. They appear to be bound mainly to Jaffa, and that such local Arabs trying to join have been turned away. The volunteers are not coming down on the villages for provisioning. It is reported that European volunteers are being brought to Syria and the Lebanon as instructors, and one of the parties who have crossed the frontier is stated to have been led by a German officer." On March 12, in the Fortnightly Newsletter number 63, issued by the Headquarters British troops in Palestine, the British revealed the presence in Palestine of non-Arab volunteers as members of the Arab Liberation Army, including German officers and Yugoslav Muslims. The report declares, 11. An observer of the Arab scene in Palestine has given an appreciation of the non-Arab volunteers who have been working with Arabs in Palestine, owing to allegiance to the Mufti. Firstly, there are the Yugoslav Muslims, estimated at less than a dozen in number, who are attached to Abdul Qadir al-Husseini in the Jerusalem area. They have had experience in warfare and have expert knowledge of underground activities. Their number is almost certain to be increased later. Then there are 3 or 4 German officers attached to Sheikh Hassan Salameh in areas around Jaffa and Lydda. One popular rumor has it that they are survivors of the Germans, who parachuted down during the last war, in the Jericho region to contact Salameh, with whom they have kept in touch ever since. These Germans refuse to meet any British volunteers. Thirdly, there are constant rumors of some British nationals, but little or nothing is known about them. ***. 12. The infiltration of the Arab Liberation Army into Palestine continues, particularly in the Ras El Ain area *** and Jaffa, where the new commander, Abdul Bey Najin ed-Din, who took over from Abdul Wahab Bey, when the latter * area of the water pipeline to Jerusalem, mined by Arabs on April 8. ***. Despite this, Foreign Minister Bevin still says, he has no knowledge of non-Arab fighters in Palestine. Page 12. Went to Syria, probably has some 1,500 regulars under his command. The Jaffa-Tel Aviv struggle has already entered a new phase, the Arabs having adopted a plan of attack, as opposed to their former policy of defense. British know every detail of invaders' deployment. On March 19, British intelligence put out a document on the Arab Liberation Army, detailing its location in every area of Palestine, its numbers and its command as follows. Arab Liberation Army. Information as at March 19, 48. General. General Officer Commanding. General Ismail Safwat Pasha. formerly Deputy Chief of Staff to the Iraqi Army. Headquarters, Damascus. Commands in Palestine. North Pal. Officer commanding Fawzi Ali Kaukji Bey. 2. In charge Mode Bey Asafa. East Pal. Officer commanding Abdul Qadir Husseini. West Pal. Officer commanding Sheikh Hassan Salama. 2. In charge a German engineer officer. South Pal. Acting officer commanding Colonel Tariq Bey, a Sudanese. Detail. North Pal. Forces at present in this area are mainly concentrated in the Samaria district. They consist of 4 regiments, each of 2 or 3 battalions. Total strength is reported as about 4,000. The Safed Nazareth Acre area does not seem to be garrisoned by ALA troops, but is used by troops in transit. Attacks in this area would appear to be the work of local gangs or troops on sorties from Syria. Yarmouk Regiment. Officer commanding Mode Bey Asafa, Lebanese. Located in the Jenin area, with an headquarters at SIR 179.176. Responsible for the attack on Tirat Zevi on February 16. Hadian Regiment. Officer commanding Nasht Bey. Located in the area south of Tulkarm, with a battalion 600 strong under an Iraqi at Ras Al Ain 144.167. Responsible for the attack on Magdil 141.174. Hussein Regiment. Officer commanding Abdul Wahab. Located north of Tulkarm, with an headquarters at Atil 157.197. Responsible for the attack on Marbata 15.282.070 on February 28. Circassian Regiment. Officer commanding Isan Bey. Located in the Nablus area. Reported to have made no attacks as yet. East Pal. Forces are mainly in the Jerusalem area. They consist of Husseini gangsters and do not appear to be properly organized or disciplined. West Pal. Area corresponds to the civil district of Lydda, together with that part of the Gaza district, north of Aline Al Majdal 111.119 to Fallujah 126.114. Jaffa Area Officer commanding Lieutenant Colonel Adel Najm Adin Bey. Strength reported to be more than 2,000 men, possibly part of the Yarmouk Regiment. This garrison includes Yugoslavs trained in sabotage. Ramel Area. Strength 2 battalions of 500 men, each commanded by an Iraqi captain. 1 battalion headquarters. Reported at 13.67, 1.504. The other at Salama Village. South Pal. Headquarters of the district is at Magatsi Camp 91.092. Julis Area. 1,000 men reported to be forming up at Julis Camp 119.122, which is at present commanded by Captain Ibrahim Isdar, a Syrian. This area may be used as a base hospital. Gaza Area Mustafa Al-Wakil Ben, an Egyptian unit, is at Gaza Airfield 199.198. 200 men are reported at Magatsi. A training camp is in the process of being established at Nabi Hussein 108.118. Page 13. 5. Arab Legion cannot move without British signal. On December 12, 1947, Foreign Minister Bevin told the House of Commons that the units of the Transjordan Arab Legion would be withdrawn from Palestine. He said, "I was asked a question about the Arab Legion. I should explain that this is a force which owes allegiance to the King of Transjordan, but units of it have, for some time, been serving under the orders of the British General Officer Commanding, in accordance with a long-standing arrangement with King Abdullah. It has been decided that all these units will be drawn from Palestine at the same time as the withdrawal of the British forces. That withdrawal will be completed when the withdrawal of the British forces is completed. British promise to withdraw Arab Legion from Palestine." But on April 16, these units numbering some thousands were still in Palestine, encamped near the units of Arab invading forces, still engaged in a series of unprovoked aggressions on peaceful Jewish residents and passers-by. On that date, Sir Alexander Cadogan told the Security Council, "We have already announced that the units of the Arab League in Palestine will be withdrawn before the mandate comes to an end." The following day, however, on April 17, King Abdullah of Transjordan announced that he would send his Arab Legion into Palestine to help the Arabs and was seconded by his foreign minister, a threat which has since been repeated. On April 26, King Abdullah announced that on May 1 he would march into Palestine, in personal command of the armies of Transjordan, Syria, and Lebanon. Could King Abdullah carry out his threat without British knowledge and consent? The facts show that Transjordan is a military appendage of the British, and could not act without their knowledge and consent. The Arab Legion, regarded as the finest military force in the Middle East, is under the command of a Britisher, Brigadier J.B. Glubb. The Legion is organized, trained, officered, and paid for by the British government at a cost of more than $7,500,000 annually. Nonetheless, Foreign Minister Bevan told the House of Commons on April 28, "I am not going to be drawn into promises and commitments about the Transjordan force until I know the final decision of the UN on Palestine. Do the British control the Arab Legion?" The first partition of Palestine took place in 1922, when the British separated Transjordan from it. In January 1946, Great Britain, without the consent of the United Nations, announced the independence of Transjordan which, since 1922, had been governed under the Palestine Mandate. On March 22, 1946, the British government announced the conclusion of a treaty of alliance with Transjordan, which recognized Transjordan as an independent kingdom and the Emir Abdullah as its sovereign. In an annex to the treaty, provision was made for British bases in Transjordan and the training of the armed forces of that country by British military personnel. On March 15, 1948, a new treaty of alliance was signed between Transjordan and Great Britain. Under the new treaty, Britain continues its annual grant for the maintenance of Transjordan's armed forces. Brigadier John Bagot Glubb, commander of the Transjordan Arab Legion, retains his post under King Abdullah. The British are responsible as well for equipping the Legion and supply, in addition to Brigadier Glubb, more than 40 British senior officers. Page 14. Provisions of 1948 Treaty with Transjordan. Under the March Treaty, the British received the right to maintain units of the Royal Air Forces in Transjordan. The British financed the maintenance and development of airfields, ports, roads, and other lines of communication. The British undertake to train Transjordan forces in the United Kingdom or in any British colony. In Transjordan, joint training operations are to be maintained with the British providing training personnel. The British undertake to provide arms, ammunition, equipment, aircraft, and other war materials. All Transjordan war materials to be standardized with that of the British. The British receive port rights. To carry out the military alliance, a permanent joint defense board has been set up. These rights are granted in the annex to the treaty, of which the following are the relevant articles. Article 1. That the high contracting parties recognize that, in the common interests of both, each of them must be in a position to discharge his obligations under Article 3 of the treaty. B. In the event of either high contracting party becoming engaged in war, or of a menace of hostilities, each high contracting party will invite the other to bring to his territory or territory controlled by him the necessary forces of all arms. Each will furnish to the other all the facilities and assistance in his power, including the use of all means and lines of communication, and on financial terms to be agreed upon. C. His Majesty the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan will safeguard, maintain and develop as necessary the airfields, ports, roads, and other means and lines of communication in and across the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan, as may be required for the purposes of the present treaty and its annex, and will call upon His Britannic Majesty's assistance, as may be required for this purpose. D. Until such time as the high contracting parties agree that the state of world security renders such measures unnecessary, His Majesty the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan invites His Britannic Majesty to maintain units of the Royal Air Force at Amman and Mafraq airfields. His Majesty the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan will provide all the necessary facilities for the accommodation and maintenance of the units mentioned in this paragraph, including facilities for the storage of their ammunition and supplies, and the lease of any land required. Article 3. His Britannic Majesty will reimburse to His Majesty the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan all expenditure which the government of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan may incur, in connection with the provision of facilities under Article 1, C, and D of the present annex, and will repair or pay compensation for any damage due to the actions of members of His Britannic Majesty's armed forces, other than damage caused in military operations undertaken, in accordance with Article 3 of the present treaty. Article 4. His Majesty the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan agrees to afford on request all necessary facilities for the movement of units of His Britannic Majesty's forces in transit across the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan, with their supplies and equipment, on the same financial terms as those applicable to the forces of His Majesty, the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan. Article 6. In order that the armed forces of the high contracting parties should attain the necessary efficiency in cooperation with each other, and in view of the desirability of establishing identity between the training and methods employed by the Transjordan and British forces respectively. 1. His Britannic Majesty offers appropriate facilities in the United Kingdom, and in any British colony or protectorate administered by the government of the United Kingdom, for the training of the armed forces of His Majesty, the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan. 2. His Britannic Majesty will make available operational units of his armed forces to engage in joint training operations with the armed forces of His Majesty, the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan, for a sufficient period in each year. 3. His Majesty the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan agrees to, page 15, make available facilities in the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan for the purposes of this joint training. 4. His Britannic Majesty will provide on request any British service personnel whose services are required to ensure the efficiency of the military units of the forces of the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan. 5. His Britannic Majesty will a. afford all possible facilities to His Majesty the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan for the military instruction of Transjordan officers at schools of instruction maintained for His Britannic Majesty's forces, and b. provide arms, ammunition, equipment and aircraft and other war material for the forces of His Majesty the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan. 6. His Majesty the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan will a. meet the cost of instruction and equipment referred to in paragraph 5a, and b. above, b. ensure that the armament and essential equipment of his forces shall not differ in type from those of the forces of His Britannic Majesty. c. send any personnel of his forces that may be sent abroad for training to military schools, colleges, and training centers maintained for His Britannic Majesty's forces. Article 7. His Majesty the King of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan gives permission for ships of His Britannic Majesty's Navy to visit the ports of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan at any time, upon giving notification to the government of the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan. In addition, the Annex provides for the establishment of a permanent joint advisory body to coordinate defense matters. The body is described in Article 2 as follows. This body, which will be known as the Anglo-Transjordan Joint Defense Board, will be composed of competent military representatives of the governments of the high contracting parties in equal numbers, and its functions will include a. the formulation of agreed plans in the strategic interests common to both countries, b. immediate consultation in the event of any threat of war, c. the coordination of measures to enable the forces of either high contracting party to fulfill their obligations under Article 3 of the present treaty, and in particular measures for the safeguarding, maintenance and development of the airfields, ports, and lines of communication referred to in Article 1c of this annex. D. Consultation regarding training and the provision of equipment. The Joint Defense Board shall submit annual reports thereon and recommendations to the governments of the two high contracting parties. E. Arrangements regarding the joint training operations referred to in Article 6 of this annex. F. The consideration of and if necessary recommendation for the location of His Britannic Majesty's forces at places in Transjordan other than those provided for in Article 1d of this annex. Page 16. 6. The British protection of Jerusalem. On December 11, 1947, Arthur Creech Jones, Secretary of State for the Colonies, told the House of Commons, up to the date of the relinquishment of the mandate, the Palestine government remains responsible for the security of Jerusalem and its holy places, but not even the special position of Jerusalem has deterred the British from sacrificing it to its own plans for an Arab alliance. To be sure, soon after the passage of the November 29 resolution, the British government did cooperate with the Trusteeship Council of the United Nations in drawing up a draft statute for Jerusalem, establishing it as an international city under international trusteeship. But when the Arab Higher Committee objected to its efforts on the score that it was implementing one of the November 29 General Assembly resolutions, the line of cooperation was dropped and supplanted by the line of capitulation. Under the guise of a spurious neutrality, it made possible a series of events, initiated by the Arabs, which have splattered the sanctity of the holy city with blood. Thus, thanks to British neutrality. 1. Ben Yehuda Street, the chief commercial center of Jewish Jerusalem, was bombed. 2. A band of the Mufti's henchmen, calling itself the Arab National Guard, could seize and hold with impunity the old city of Jerusalem, where the ancient shrines of all the religions are to be found, and keep 2,000 Jews as hostages. The British have even concluded an agreement with this band, permitting passage to distribute food and other supplies. 3. Thus the Arabs could bomb the offices of the Jewish Agency on March 11th, killing 13 and wounding 45. 4. The Arabs could on April 13th, within full sight of a British army post, attack a Hadassah medical convoy flying a medical symbol, in the course of which 76 persons were killed and 20 wounded. The casualties included the director of the Hadassah Hospital, Dr. H. Yaski, doctors, nurses, and other medical personnel, as well as academic staff including scientists attached to the Hebrew University of Mt. Scopus. This attack took place within 200 yards of a British army post. Iraqi soldiers were among the Arab gangs which attacked the convoy. The attack lasted for 6 hours before the eyes of the British military, who not only failed to halt the attack, but prevented the Haganah from coming to the rescue. The April 13th attack was the climax of a series begun on December 30th, 1947. Continuous complaints and a request for protection of the road, which leads to the Hadassah Hospital and the Hebrew University, had been made by the Jewish Community Council of Jerusalem and by Hadassah itself. The area requiring protection was half a mile in length on the Scopus Road. Between March 26th and April 6th, no incidents occurred. On December 27th, the Arab Higher Committee, and on January 13th, the Palestine Arab Medical Association, issued memoranda asking the Arabs to refrain from attacking hospitals, ambulances, doctors, nurses. Nonetheless, these attacks were accelerated. On March 17th, Abdul Qadi al-Husseini, then the Arab military commander in the Jerusalem area, subsequently killed by the Haganah, publicly announced that he would occupy or even demolish the Hadassah Hebrew University Medical Center. Despite the full evidence concerning this, no effective action was taken by the British. On April 13th, British soldiers watched the Arab onslaught and instructed the Haganah not to send reinforcements. When Jewish reinforcements finally reached the scene, they were blocked. Page 17. By the British. When British troops ultimately intervened, they fired mortar shells not only at the Arabs, but at Jews trying to defend themselves from the Arabs. When Jacques de Reynier, representative of the International Red Cross, attempted to arrange a truce, it took the British 5½ hours to bring Mr. de Reynier to the scene of the attack, which is not more than a 10-minute ride from the heart of Jerusalem. Not even the events of April 13th caused the British to safeguard the road, with the result that on April 24th, the Hadassah Hospital had been, for a week, without food replenishments. When on April 25th, the Haganah attempted to ensure safe passage on the road and captured a key Arab attacking post, Sheikh Jarrah village, the British in force encircled the Haganah and compelled their evacuation. 5. Though the Mufti's organization, the Arab Higher Committee with its headquarters in Jerusalem, is directing the whole operation, not one of its leaders has been arrested. On the contrary, the British have refused permission to the Jewish population to organize their own defense. They have blown up Jewish defense posts. They have advised the Jews to evacuate the commercial section of Jerusalem. The British authorities are conniving at the starving of the Jewish population of Jerusalem. They have failed to protect the highways and refused to allow armed escorts and self-arming by the Jews. British attack Jews. When the Jewish Agency told the UN Palestine Commission that the Jews of Jerusalem were starving because of Arab roadblocks on the road from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and that the British government had neither offered to escort food convoys nor stipulated conditions under which escort might be provided, J. Fletcher Cook, British liaison with the UN Commission, replied on April 12, 1948 with an attack on the Jews. He said, "It should be emphasized again that the problem is not one of food shortage in Palestine as a whole. The government of Palestine has reported that there is food available in Palestine to maintain the necessary supplies for Jerusalem. The problem is entirely one of the transport of this food from the ports to Jerusalem. It may be added that transport by rail to Jerusalem is ruled out because, even if trains succeeded in escaping Arab attacks or sabotage en route, the railway station at Jerusalem is in a predominantly Arab area, and the Arabs would not permit offloading of food destined for the Jews. Any attempt to do this would result in a major engagement. He then proceeded to place the blame on the Jews. Very early in the disturbances which have occurred in Palestine, since November 29, 1947, attacks on traffic using this road were made by both Jews and Arabs. It is difficult to say who initiated these attacks, but it is fairly certain that firing action was first taken by the Jews, after their vehicles had been stoned by Arabs in Ramla. The situation then developed into a fight for control of the road. The Arabs, no doubt in order to facilitate action by their troops, withdrew all their own vehicles from the stretch of the road in question, and were then secure in the knowledge that any civilian traffic, which they cared to attack, must be Jewish. The Jews then appealed for assistance. During December, certain escorts were provided by the army and the police, but it became the Jewish practice to produce at the convoy rendezvous more vehicles than had been arranged for, with the result that the escort provided was insufficient. The blame for this was laid by the Jews on the government of Palestine. He then charged the Jews with being responsible for the failure of their food convoys to get through because of the employment by Jews of long slow columns of armored and unarmored vehicles. The British representative also disclosed an attempt to get Arab permission for Jewish food convoys, provided nothing but food was carried that Jewish accompanying personnel were, page 18, reduced to a minimum, and that convoys were subject to search at some selected point. Mr. Fletcher Cook was greatly surprised that Jewish agency officials refused this offer of capitulation to the Arabs. British draft capitulation under truce guise. Last month, the British were agents for another proposal for capitulation by the Jews. Mr. Graves, nominated by the Palestine government as the chairman of the Municipal Commission of Jerusalem, drafted a peace project for Jerusalem, later amended by Sir Henry Gurney, the Chief Secretary of Palestine. This peace project proposed that all armed men should leave the portion of the Old City occupied by Orthodox Jews, whose safety would be guaranteed by the Arabs if this were done, and the Old Montefiore quarter should be similarly evacuated by all armed men and placed under the protection of British forces and the municipality. Other provisions of the plan were: each community should for the time being restrict the movement of its members to its own areas, which will be policed by its own members of the municipal police force. B. Each community should solemnly undertake not to attack the other by sending armed men into that community's area, or by firing from one area into another. C. Each community should bind itself to exercise the utmost self-restraint and control the violent elements in its midst. D. Each community should refrain from retaliation and reprisals, which can only make it more difficult for the leaders of either community to prevent further attacks and counter-reprisals. This recommendation is the most difficult of fulfillment, but it is the most important of all. Each community should fully respect all vehicles carrying the Red Cross, Red Crescent, or Red Shield, and should undertake that any such vehicle would not be used for any purpose not authorized by these signs. F. Passage by members of one community through the territory of the other would be permitted in the case of funeral parties or revictualling parties under a flag of truce. A minimum number of omnibuses should be permitted to operate. G. No armed men should be permitted to live within any area reserved for the other community. On March 9, Mr. Graves told the Chief Secretary, Sir Henry Gurney, "I have the honor to inform you that I have handed copies of my peace project for Jerusalem, as amended by you, and with a few minor additions, to Dr. Hussein Khalidi, Secretary of the Arab Higher Committee, and Mr. David Ben-Gurion, Chairman of the Executive Committee of the Jewish Agency for Palestine." 2. Dr. Khalidi was very polite and thanked me for my initiative, promising to submit the project to his executive. He has now sent me a letter, of which I enclose a copy, stating that he and the higher executive consider that the arrangements contemplated are premature at the present stage. 3. I saw Mr. Ben-Gurion yesterday and discussed the project, which had been in his hands for a few days. For, he disagreed with the number and the variety of the clauses and would not accept the proposal that the Jews of the Old City should be guaranteed by the Arabs after the withdrawal of the Haganah, which he said was insulting to Jewry, and considered that the proposed restriction of Jews to Jewish areas and Arabs to Arab areas was undesirable and offensive to both communities. 5. However, he said that he and the Yishuv were very anxious for the peace of Jerusalem, and were prepared to undertake that not a shot would be fired by any Jew in the city for a specified agreed period, a week, a month, or a year, if the Arabs would make and observe a similar undertaking. When I mentioned that he might have some difficulty in making Jewish dissidents comply with such an undertaking, he said that he would be able to do so. 6. I promised to convey his views to the Arab Higher Executive. The breakdown of the Jerusalem water supply. On April 8, 1948, an Arab mine blew up the main water pipeline to Jerusalem at Ras El Ain. For 7 hours water flooded the fields. Page 19. Line was finally repaired by the Haganah and British Army engineers. The British authorities claimed that the destruction of the pipeline was accidental, and that the Arabs did not know that the pipeline passed under the road, at the point where the mining operation took place. But the revelations of British intelligence on March 12 contradicts the British assertion. Until the end of World War I, Jerusalem was dependent upon wells and cisterns. After World War I, Jerusalem began to bring its water from 2 nearby sources, Solomon's Pools, south of Bethlehem, and the spring of Ein Farah, 6 miles from Jerusalem. In 1937, to meet the needs of a growing population, the Palestine government built a pipeline bringing water from the coastal plain, Ras El Ain, 40 miles from Jerusalem, which was pumped through the hills to Jerusalem, and supplies Jerusalem with 1,500,000 cubic meters of water annually. The pipeline runs entirely through Arab territory. Part of the area through which the pipeline runs was captured by the Jews, but a 20-mile section from Ras El Ain to Bab El Wad remains under Arab control, exposing the pipeline to continuous danger of being cut. The chief victim of an interruption of the water supply would be the Jewish community of Jerusalem. Most of the Arabs in Jerusalem have cisterns and wells. But the fact of the matter is that the threat to the Jerusalem water supply has been so serious and constant that as far back as January 1948, negotiations were begun by the chairman of the Municipal Commission, Mr. R. N. Graves, in an effort to safeguard the water supply station. Ultimately, the station at Ras El Ain was abandoned to Iraqi armed troops, which took over the military camp there. And Mr. Graves withdrew his demands for protection when the Lydda District Commissioner and the military commander of the South Palestine District explained that security forces were not inclined to drive them out by force, and the Haganah probably could not do so. But before this, an interesting series of letters dated January 19, 24, and 31, February 4, 11, and 26, March 2, 4, 6, and 13, were exchanged by representatives of the Jerusalem municipality and various officials of the British government with respect to security of the pipeline. These letters and other documents are reproduced in a special section following page 24. Moreover, the Jerusalem Municipal Commission on February 4 held a meeting in the course of which Mr. Graves declared that he had seen Dr. Khalidi, secretary of the Arab Higher Committee, who assured me that the municipality had the executive's fullest support as far as the water supply was concerned, but had remarked that there are lunatics in all communities for whose acts the community could not be responsible. The executive would do its utmost to see that nothing was done to harm the water supply of Jerusalem. Today, the sole deterrent to another attack on the pipeline is the supposed desire of the Arabs to maintain the water supply for their own use.